Gachagua's case is best explained as Afro-cinema. You know, where people say Afro-cinema continues shortly. The last recordings I had done, I had hoped it would be the last. Or if not the last, I would take long to record another one. But as I was uploading the video, I saw that Gachagua had called a press conference, an interview, lasting for about 4 hours. I tried to follow it, but sitting there listening to something 4 hours, where they were going round circle and nothing new was coming up, I got bored and stopped it somewhere on the way. Nothing new was coming up. I think next time Gachagua passes through Kayaba, I'll stop him. I'll stop him and advise him a very obvious thing. Two things, but they are the same. One, when you are in a hole, the last thing you do is dig a hole. The second one, when you go to a fight, don't show your equipment. At you get out a rungu, you get out a pistol rifle and say, see, I'm ready for the fight. Angalia hii na hii. And your enemy is not saying what he has, he's just waiting for you to show what you have. And then he'll come there with artilleries, tanks and so on and wipe you out of. Sometimes it is not good to show your weapon before the start of the fight. Those are the two things. Don't show don't dig when you find yourself in a hole. And two, don't show out your weapons. I'll come to that. I'm also aware that the president has called, is it UDA or Kenya Kwanza Parliamentary Group to Parliament before Tuesday, before they sit down and deliberate on his impeachment. Politicians will never learn a lesson. Politicians will never learn a lesson. The problem we had with Gen Z started when the president called the MPs to State House and whipped them into line. Just the other day, 90 days ago. Now, the president has forgotten that. If it is true that he has whipped, he has called his MPs to State House to whip them, in the future you may do that, but immediately after that thing has happened, it is unfortunate. If it is true that the president has called MPs either for UDA or Kenya Kwanza over this issue, that is unfortunate. We should stay for quite some time. Let things cool, let memories fade. But then I think there is something that politicians have not learned, and the president, being a politician, he has not learned that. Many MPs suffered by the so-called visiting. The youths are supposedly visited some MPs where offices, and I even remember, I think it's the MP for Molo, whose, can I call it palace, whose palace was burned and a lot of his business, his agricultural business went down in flames. I think it is unfortunate. If that thing has been done and whatever, somebody should tell the president that he is doing wrong. But even wronger than that wrong, sijui kama ni Kiingereza ama Kimombo, the wrongest thing he did is that there are those members of parliament who voted for the finance bill, partly or wholly influenced by him whipping them to State House. from that time, has he ever called them? It's just like if my son is a driver and he drives a vehicle and it kills or even hurts you, I'm supposed to visit you in hospital. I'm even supposed to, if it is death, I'm supposed to go to the funeral and apologize and say, okay, it is true that it is purely a road accident, but my son is the one who caused it, and we feel it. We feel for you. Now, if the president has called those MPs aside, that is not the way. I must okay. I'm giving him the benefit of doubt because people try to say that I'm an Ilipa. Supposing he has called those MPs aside and maybe felt their pain. That issue was so serious that it needed public what? Public display. Now you have not publicly displayed your sympathy to those MPs who were visited by Gen Z. You have not publicly expressed sympathy. Now you are taking them the same road, calling them to the State House to whip them again in another issue. If I had an access to the president, I would tell him there's no need. Again, there is no need because look at the politicians, and I'm also talking as somebody from Madeira. Even on the ground, he is alone. He is alone because people in Madeira and Nyeri in general felt disappointed when, upon him being sworn in as a deputy president, he took in a Gunjiri people who were in the other camp and surrounded himself with them and even left those people who were in UDA or Kenya Kwanza during the campaigns. He took the people like Ngojiri who were deep in the other camp. So he's somebody who is standing alone. You can see there are places where he even visits and local MPs keep off. He was even asked and he said he cannot force any MP to attend his meeting. So for a situation where the president's issues are not a matter of life and death, it was unfortunate. It must be unfortunate for him. If it is true, it is quite unfortunate for him to call to whip the MPs that holistically. You look at it in all angles, and you'll find that it was it was not necessary. In all meetings, that on or all interviews that Gachagua has been having, he has been saying, he has been addressing the president by telling him, call your MPs to order. Call your MPs to order. This is one of the occasions when it is unfortunate. Yes, it is good to tell the president to call his MPs to order and to request the president to be, to change and turn, like if it is true that the MPs have been called to State House and the meeting has not been held up to this time, then the best thing was for Gachagua to use any other channel apart from the public to tell the president to call his MPs to order. And then the MPs, that would even happen 3 minutes before the meeting starts. So that when the MPs are now assembled and the president comes, the president can tell them that we can change that thing. Can you now go there and whatever, or do anything that after being convinced. But addressing such a statement, addressing the president through public means, then he's just like somebody who's digging the person who is still digging a hole when he's still there. I don't know what is wrong with this person, because sincerely, there are very many non-Kikuyu people or non-Kikuyu MPs who hate him because of his issues of shares. It would have been even better. It would have even been better for him. He must have had MPs or political giants outside the mountain area. He would have gone to somebody anywhere in Kenya, out of the mountain and out of Ukambani, let's say, and talked there. But you see, surrounding himself, going to Embakasi, from Embakasi, he goes to Marikiti, from Marikiti, he goes to Nyamakima, from Nyamakima, he goes to Kikuyu land, from Kikuyu land, he goes to Gema land, or the mountain. He is his own worst enemy. He is still addressing meetings and whatever in vernacular. And you see, the MPs who are going to impeach him are more. I mean, even MPs from the mountain, if they voted for him, still all others could gang up and vote and reach the thresholds. He has come up with cases, he himself and his MPs. The MPs have taken cases to court to prevent the police from arresting them. Now, if you are innocent, why should you go to court to have your case? I mean, to block the police from arresting you. Let me not continue there, because you never know about tomorrow. Matiang'i never knew. You know, Matiang'i was complaining the other time that people have come up with something called anticipatory bail. Anticipatory bail. So Matiang'i was complaining, if you are innocent, why should you fill in an anticipatory bail? But then Matiang'i himself, when things changed, he also rushed to court to get an anticipatory bail. So nisiongee sana, because I may also in the future rush to court to have an anticipatory bail. Now, according to the cases that the MPs have gone to court, they are saying that, the court has given them days, that next week the director of prosecution, next week the director of criminal intelligence, they are supposed to come and explain. Next week, that is, and underline that, next week. So what stops them from arresting you today, this evening, or tomorrow? Nothing. But then in law, in Latin, they say actus rea, actus rea and mens rea. Guilty act and guilty mind. They are already rushing here. If you are completely innocent, why don't you wait your day in court? So that is what they are doing. There is something that the Anglican Archbishop is saying that people are not seeing. There is one thing that the Archbishop is saying, Olesepit. Olesepit is saying, and he has repeated this several times, that Kenyans, there is a Swahili word which is say, mandugu wakipigana, chukua jembe wende ukalime. So politicians are mandugu. Lee Njiru said that Moi used to advise him that the politicians are of the same type. For example, he said that he gave an example of when you are going to hunt a fox. You go to hunt a fox using a dog. And you know the dog and fox are brothers. Sasa wewe unatumia ndugu yako kwenda kupiga ndugu yako. So when politicians are fighting, it is the dog and the fox fighting. You as a human being come out. It is quite possible, we do not know, maybe 20 years from today, another JI-TENGE will come out and disclose what is happening. It is quite possible that there are talks. Olesepit gave an example of Adani. Olesepit gave an example of Adani, but there could be others even more deeper than that and whatever. Or even, you see, there are so many things. Today we have, every time we have these people going on strike. The other time we had, there's a time we had Kupet, we had NAT, we had the university teachers, we had doctors, we had whatever, we have Adani, we have whatever. So when we come up with a topic like this, all the attention is drawn to Gachagua this, Gachagua that, Gachagua that. And I still insist, even up to right now, I still believe that by the time this case is over, by the time they are through with everything, there is a lot of things that will have happened behind. And I still insist that Gachagua will be Ruto's running mate 2027, and we are just being led down the route. In the interview, yesterday's interview, it was so long that I got bored, and I didn't listen to it all. But in the interview, as I said, Gachagua is doing bad. He's already showing his signs, showing that, unaona, I'm going to that place with a rungu, I'm going there with a simi. He's telling the enemies what he's carrying. He has already indicated that even if the MPs impeach him, he'll still go to court for something called public participation. He has already told the MPs. So as they are impeaching him, you remember the speaker, the two speakers are senior lawyers. It will reach a place where the MPs will reach somewhere and then break off for a week. Why? The MPs will be told to go to their constituencies for public participation. You see, that is, first of all, I've seen Gachagua seems to be a person whom, when you go to advise him, is so harsh that it is him who will advise you. He doesn't listen to advice, and I get the impression that he even gets physical. He could even get hold of your tie if you advised him something that he should have kept quiet. He should have kept quiet until the impeachment was over, and then he would have rushed to court for constitutional interpretation. And from 2010 to date, I have noticed that judiciary, judiciary used to be ordered around by Moi. Now, when the 2010 constitution came, judiciary's first responsibility is go against the executive. So I'm very sure if Gachagua would have waited for them without even disclosing, for them to impeach him, and then he would rush to the Supreme Court. And once the Supreme Court has determined, there's no other way around. They had to wait for another 6 months, and 6 months, a week in politics is too long. So that is how he went wrong. I don't really understand. I've talked in the earlier videos about how things, even though it is a Ruto's person of people who are trying to block him from knowing when the president is leaving, or this and that, when they're keeping, but I don't know why I've already said I don't know why he went public about that. But the worst of the worst mistakes he did was when the president had addressed from State House, Nairobi, he had addressed issues of GNC. He waited until the president had completed, and then he spoke. He spoke. So you see that one. Okay, we had visitors coming. He wasn't there. He said he was in the mountain meditating. There was the president leaving. When the president is at the airport going to, was it Asia or something? When the president was leaving the country, that is the time he's now waiting for Citizen TV to interview him at his residency. The president again has addressed issues to do with GNC. After the president is over, 5 minutes later, it is him now addressing the nation. Come on. There's something wrong with him. And as I've said, he's somebody who appears to me as somebody who is not advised. And let me also tell you, because I've interacted with people who, they were my juniors, I've interacted with people who advise some of this. There are occasions when I incite them and tell them, go and say no, 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 and never to your boss. They tell me that there are some things we don't advise our bosses, because one thing you advise the bosses, you have to be prepared on how you live for the next tenure of his office. Yeah, and you see, we have fees to pay, we have bills to settle. So there are some things that we find it is not necessary to advise him, because we already know that he will not hear that. And I think there is a lot of things that Gachagua has with his advisors that they don't tell him. Because Nakuru, he came late. Nakuru, he came to a Corino function after the president had arrived. Underline the word after, the capital after the president had arrived. In Mombasa, he waited for the president to give a government statement, which to me is final. But then he himself comes up later, gives another one, which, to the best of the office, he's even supposed to give up a complimentary and whatever. But then he goes outside what the president has said. He said, I am a father to Gen Zs, and start reasoning as if he was out of the government. Since Kenya attained independence up to date, executive powers have always rested in one person. It is only once, when Raila was the prime minister, when some semblance of power was given to him. If such an occasion happens, and maybe Raila goes and gives a complimentary or a contradictory statement to Kibaki, it would have been understood, because it was the most concentrated coalition government we have ever had. Otherwise, since Kenya attained independence up to today, things have always been a one-man show. So, viewers, with those 24 minutes, I would tell you that Gachagua is going nowhere, but he is his own worst enemy. At a time, there's a time to talk, there's a time to sing, there's a time for everything. But most important, there is a time to keep quiet. Those things that he's talking of things which are even out of the reality. He's saying that he was given 5 years mandate, and if anybody wants him out, they should wait for 5 years. He says the MPs, the 200 people, cannot overrule the will of the 7.5 million. But the constitution is there. You can make that noise. But I would advise you, modo wa moshi, modo wa madera, modo wa kayafa, akuhena tomo tomo. I would tell you that you should find time to talk to people like Sonko, and to people like my former schoolmate, Baba Yao. They'll tell you. Once the parliament has decided, you will go and you will go.